The Tartarian depths of Carceri, the sixfold layers of Tarterus, the Red Prison, the Great Cage. All are names for the prison of the multiverse, where evil gods are kept prisoners, and the souls of traitors spend their afterlives. Quote, "It's a place of darkness and despair, of passions and poisons, of betrayal greater than the heavens above. On Carceri, hatreds run like a deep, slow-moving river, and there's no telling where the tide of treachery is going to turn next." End quote. Carceri, also called Tarterus, is the prison of the multiverse, a place where evil powers are exiled to, such as the Titans who were driven out of Olympus by the Olympian pantheon. Getting here is easy, but leaving isn't. One can only leave once they have become stronger than whatever imprisoned them here, but that's almost impossible to do on a plane whose very nature breeds despair, betrayal, and self-hatred. It is the neutral evil, chaotic evil plane, located between the chaotic evil abyss and the neutral evil Hades. Carceri is a series of planets, large orbs that are strung together like pearls, seemingly going on forever. The size of each orb and the distance between them varies depending on the layer, getting smaller and further apart the deeper you go. Each orb is nested inside the orb of the previous layer like a nesting doll, so someone traveling from one layer to another would still find himself on the same orb, so to speak. For example, if you were on Orb 1 of Othrys, the first layer, and then traveled to Cathrys, the second layer, you would find yourself on Orb 1 of Cathrys. If you were on Orb 2 of Othrys and traveled to Cathrys, you would find yourself on Orb 2 of Cathrys. You would never end up on a different orb when traveling between layers. Carceri has 6 layers. Othrys, the land of bogs and canals, Cathrys, the oozing jungle, Minethys of the stinging sands, Colothys, a mountaineer's dream and the worst nightmare of those who live there, Porphatys, home of the flesh-melting black snow, and Agathys, the coldest lot and the deepest. The worlds of Carceri are crimson. The soil gives off a dull red glow similar to the phosphorescence of fire beetles. There are no days and nights. The ground always glows red, and the sky is illuminated by the glow of other orbs. Since the orbs get smaller and further apart the deeper you go, each subsequent layer gets dimmer. The ground is also the source of the plane's heat. In first edition, the temperature is said to be as warm as a summer afternoon in the prime material plane. In second edition, the temperature ranges from cool summer evenings to freezing cold. The plane is subjected to regular seasons and weather patterns, such as clear days and heavy storms, in a completely random fashion. The space between the orbs is filled with air, so one could fly from one orb to another relatively safely since you'd be able to breathe, but the air smells of rot and decay. Many parts of the plane are battle-scarred, as it is one of the battlegrounds of the Blood War. Tanari generals come here to force people into their armies, and the natives are suspicious of all visitors since they live this close to a war zone. Point is, don't expect to be welcomed with open arms here. All of that information is from 1st and 2nd edition. 3rd and 5th edition have less info, but all of it is consistent with what I just said. The only outlier is, as usual, 4th edition. So 4th edition does the thing 4E always does, which is to change the lore substantially. Since 4E doesn't use the Great Wheel cosmology, but instead the World Axis cosmology, Carceri is an astral dominion which floats in the astral sea. It is difficult to get to, and its only entrance is a great adamantine gate forged by Moradin to keep some powerful primordial imprisoned. The primordial was too powerful to destroy without destroying all the multiverse, so they trapped it here. The 6 layers are not layers, but instead islands. The first 5 are described as cold and marshy with acidic rain, and are inhabited by devils for some reason. And then the last island is uninhabited, and is where the nameless primordial was imprisoned and guarded by angels. I'll talk more about the geographical features of each layer later in this video, but as you'll see, this description is very, very different from the other editions. Traveling. Carceri is one of the easiest planes to enter. Portals and conduits drop travelers off in Othrys, and sometimes even deeper layers, but leaving is almost impossible. The only way out is through the Styx or one of the gates in Othrys. At least, those are the only way outs for visitors. People that have been imprisoned here, such as the Petitioners or the Titans, cannot leave the plane by any means except by becoming physically, mentally, or emotionally more powerful than the one who imprisoned them. So let's discuss the various ways of traveling to, from, and around Carceri. First is Mount Olympus. According to 2nd edition, Mount Olympus connects to the realm of the Titans on the first layer, Othrys. However, it is a one-way trip. You can get to Carceri, but you cannot leave through Mount Olympus. However, according to 1st edition, the Olympian gods shattered this part of Mount Olympus and it no longer functions at all. The river Styx. So, Marinoloths will ferry people to Carceri for a cheaper fee than anywhere else, but getting them to ferry you out costs 5,000 gold pieces worth of magic items. Trips between orbs within the plane cost the usual Marinoloth fee, but this only works on the first layer since the river Styx doesn't run through the other layers. Gates. So there are gates on the first layer of Othrys that act as exit gates. They only appear once every 5th orb. The beings that are imprisoned on Carceri resent others who are free to leave, so they guard these entrances to ensure no one can leave. Misery loves company, after all. These gates are great obsidian obelisks, carved with snarling beasts and woeful spirits, although some say the faces carved in the rock are actually petitioners infused into it, which is what makes the gates permanent. Gates taller than they are wide lead to the abyss. Ones wider than they are tall lead to Hades, and ones of equal width and height lead to the Outlands. The obelisks are activated simply by touching them. Traveling to other layers. So the barriers between the layers of Carceri are at the highest peaks if going to a layer above, or the deepest chasms if going to a layer below. The barriers between the 5th and 6th are always underwater. If there are any layers beyond the 6, their barriers are trapped beneath miles of ice. Yugoloths, Garruleths, and Tanari know planeswalkers are usually easy pickings, and like to set up ambushes by these portals to eat or enslave them for the Blood War. Traveling to the other orbs. So if you want to travel from one orb to another on the same layer, it's just a matter of flying from one to the other. As discussed earlier, the space between the orbs has breathable air, albeit foul-smelling air. It also has no gravity. Once propelled, you will continue to move in that direction. Each orb has a sphere of influence where gravity begins, and the sphere ends at the highest peak of a given orb in 2nd edition or 100 feet off the ground in 3rd edition. So one way of traveling between orbs, assuming you aren't capable of flying, is to get to the highest point on the orb, propel yourself off, and then use this momentum to float to the next one. Various methods exist and are sold on Carceri, although no one here can be trusted, so you're very likely to get screwed over by any deal you make. These are the 3 most common devices used and sold on Carceri to travel from orb to orb. The Ferris sled. This is a sled made of lodestone tailored to a specific layer, so that it always repels itself against the ground. All one needs to do is get on and push off, and the sled will continually move in that direction. These only work on one specific layer, so if one plans on traveling to multiple layers, they'll need a sled for each one. They are usually sold for 2,000 gold pieces, can hold 500 pounds, and are 6 feet long and 3 feet wide. And because they are so well known and common, it is rare to get screwed on a deal for a Ferris sled. The next method of travel are skin balloons. They're basically just hot air balloons, except the balloon is made of the skin of one of Carceri's natives. The problems with this is strong wind can spell disaster for someone who isn't good at controlling it, requiring a dex check at -4 with penalties for strong winds. A puncture in the balloon will ruin the whole thing, and certain creatures flying through the void might not take kindly to seeing the skin of one of their fellows being used as a balloon. These go for 1,000 gold pieces for a 2-man balloon. The third common device is the spinneret. It is a 100-foot long, flat, thin rope that weighs nearly nothing. It works the same way a spider's ballooning works. You throw the rope out on a high mountain and let it catch the wind, whisking you away. The problem is you have no control over where it takes you, and only a fool would trust the winds in the plane of betrayal. However, this is by far the cheapest option at only 150 gold pieces. Properties. So in 2nd edition and Planescape, every plane had a plethora of magical properties. Keep in mind, all of these I am going to list only apply to arcane spellcasters. If you are a divine spellcaster who gets their power from a god, you ignore all of these. However, you are treated as one level lower for each plane between Carceri and the plane your god resides in, affecting the power of your spells, how many you can prepare, and what level spells you can cast. So, in Carceri, magic used for selfish purposes and the benefit of the individual at the cost of the whole functions with maximum effectiveness. Any spell that benefits others will fail without the correct spell key. Alteration magic. Things are always turned into the most evil result possible. If this isn't possible, it manifests in the most hostile way, such as flames twisting into tortured faces or sigils appearing as screaming faces. Conjuration summoning. Summoned creatures are not bound to the caster, maintaining their free will. For any intelligent being, this means being hostile and tearing the caster to pieces, unless they can offer a bribe or show of good faith good enough for the creature. Divination. Since Carceri is the plane of betrayal and backstabbing, divinations require the sacrifice of a comrade, taking shape in the pool of their blood. Diviners are hated here. Necromancy. Healing spells function at half power. Raised undead are free-willed and may choose to attack the caster, and necromancy spells that cause damage deal an additional +1 damage per level of the caster. Elemental magic. Elemental magic varies to each layer, as different elements are stronger in some places and weaker in others. Water is most powerful on Porphatys, but works well on Agathys too. Air dominates Minethys, and earth is most effective on Colothys. Favored elements are nearly doubled in effects, while ones that are weak are virtually powerless, but the exact specifics on game mechanics are up to the Dungeon Master. Now, if you're familiar with Planescape, you'll know about spell keys, but essentially, they are ways of casting spells that allow you to bypass all of these magical restrictions. The spell keys of Carceri are usually easy to find on the layer, however, they change frequently, so there's no way to know if any of these still work, but here are some examples. The key for Alteration is a lead necklace wrapped around the caster's wrist. The Conjuration key is a fist-sized lodestone. Divination is a good quantity of the caster's blood. While uncomfortable, it's usually preferable than a dead comrade. And the Necromancy key is the thigh bone of a Faerun Gareleth. Then you also have power keys, which either empower divine magic, making it work at maximum effectiveness, or bypass the level loss of being on a plane far from your god. The power keys given by the gods of Carceri tend to be items of importance in the god's portfolio. For example, Malar's key might be animal claws or fangs, while Raiden's might be arrows or drums. However, the powers of Carceri see reliance on their power keys as weak and dependent, and seldom give them out. In 3rd edition, Carceri has the mildly evil align trait, which makes it so that good characters suffer a -2 penalty on all charisma-based checks. In addition, petitioners of Carceri get +10 competence bonus on bluff checks, since they were all skilled liars in life. In all editions except 1st edition, leaving the plane was almost impossible, since most ways of entering, including spells such as Gate, are always one way, not allowing you to exit. In 1st edition, Carceri is still said to be a prison plane, holding the Titans as prisoners. However, it never says if it's impossible or difficult for other beings to leave, just the Titans. Inhabitants. Since Carceri is a prison plane, almost everyone here has pissed off someone high up somewhere and was imprisoned for it. Carceri is the afterlife for betrayers and deceivers, and thus cannot be trusted as they are all treacherous, whether that be backstabbing, simple politics, or adultery. Every friendship and promise should be automatically assumed to be false and doomed to end. So, with the inhabitants, first let's talk about the Demodans, also known as the Gareleths. They are the only race native to Carceri. They are chaotic evil fiends, although in 3rd and 5th edition they changed them to neutral evil, but given the fact that they exist solely to destroy and wreak havoc, neutral doesn't really fit them. They delight in torture, cruelty, and destruction. Their hierarchy is broken up into 3 subraces. Shators are their ruling class, usually ruling part of an orb, Kelubar are the middle class, and Faerun are the commoners. All Demodans are winged, allowing them to traverse between orbs. They seem to have no purpose except to wreak havoc and cause destruction everywhere they go. I will have a video out on the Garruleths soon, so if you want more information on them, just stay tuned for that. Next up, we have the Demons and Yugoloths. Since Carceri is between the Abyss and Hades, it is a common battleground between the Yugoloths and demons, essentially a, quote, continual insurgency against whichever race becomes top dog on a particular orb, end quote. It is not uncommon for an Arcanoloth or powerful Cambion to have both Yugoloths and demons in their households, provided they can control them. However, the Garruleths take no part in the Blood War, despising the other fiends, and loathing the Yugoloths most of all. Other creatures. Being part of the Blood War means devil armies can also sometimes be found here, although they're rarer than the other fiends since the Nine Hells is pretty far away. In addition to the well-known fiendish races, you can also find Echairai, Hordlings, Shadow Demons, Mephits, Quasits, Imps, Hordlings, and Larvae here. Varguils are common, rumors saying they were created by a powerful Shator to bother his enemies on other planes, but they turned on their master and devoured him. Nightmares roam Minethys and Cathrys. Turlin can be found on Othrys and Porphatys. Turlin are man-sized shark-like creatures whose pectoral fins double as wings, allowing them to swim or fly while searching for prey. A race of neutral evil, gaunt, gray-skinned humanoids called the Gautir live on Minethys. They have completely given up hope of escaping, but they will make deals with people if they have something they need. The stories go that they used to just be called the Tyr and lived on the Outlands until the god they loved so much betrayed them. They then performed a powerful ritual to imprison their god in Carceri, but the spell was so powerful it took them as well. The Voth are sadistic creatures exclusively native to the jungles of Cathrys. They are horrible amalgamations of insect and reptile. They will not make deals and they cannot be reasoned with. They constantly search for victims to hunt and torture slowly. Bloodthorns, a lethal plant from the Abyss that drinks blood, and Vors, hyena-like fiends from Pandemonium, can also be found here. Petitioners. The Petitioners of Carceri got this plane as their afterlife because they are traitors, betrayers, and liars who, quote, abuse trust and turn stag on their brethren, end quote. They lie constantly, compulsively, and with great cunning. It is said that they never tell the truth. However, they twist these lies so much that even an opposite translation yields yet another falsehood. So never think that you have their lies figured out, for it's probably one of many layers to obfuscate their true intentions. Petitioners are assigned a layer based on what kind of treachery they're guilty of. Although, of course, petitioners can move between layers, so this isn't a perfect guide. Othrys houses the politicians and traitors to their countries, who lied to gain power. Cathrys holds those who betrayed their humanity, who gave in to animal instincts when they didn't need to. Minethys is for the greedy, who hoarded things that would have benefited others. Colothys is for the liars and cheaters, those who lied when telling the truth would have been just as easy. Those sent to Porphatys are the shallow and self-absorbed, those who had the power to help others but refused to do so. And Agathys is for those who betrayed their friends, pretending to care about someone they really didn't. The Revolutionary League, an anarchist faction of Sigil, keeps their headquarters, the Bastion of Last Hope, on Othrys, the first layer of Carceri. They don't have much influence on the rest of the plane though, sticking to their safe house. Powers. Just like any outer plane, there are many gods that live here. The gods of Carceri include Apoms, the god of the Garruleths, Falazur, the night dragon, god of death for dragonkind, and so debased his wings won't even carry him. Grolangtor, the god of hill giants, said to be willfully stupid, trying to accomplish with brute force that wit would have more effectively accomplished. They say he could be intelligent if he only let himself think about things. Carantor, Grolantor's younger brother and god of the Fomorians, Parafair, the Naga demi-power of tricks and traps, who the other gods here despise since he is able to come and go as he wishes and is more chaotic than evil. Veyron, the male drow god of thievery and treachery. Raiden, the Japanese god of thunder and fletchers. Talana, the Forgotten Realms goddess of poison. Malar, the Forgotten Realms god of predators and the hunt, who was imprisoned here by Talos. And Nerul, the Flan deity of death of the Greyhawk setting, but unlike the others, he came here of his own volition. You also have the Titans, the 11 children of Gaia and Uranus, including Cronus, the king of the first Titans. Long ago, the Olympian gods defeated the Titans and cast them into Carceri. Just like everyone else imprisoned here, they are not kind to anyone, and will only help someone out if they are cajoled, bought, or swayed by extraordinary means. All creatures that make Carceri their home are immune to the effects of the plane and all its layers, such as the acid snow of Porphatys or the freezing cold of Agathys. Now, let's discuss the individual layers of Carceri. First up, we have Othrys. Othrys is the first layer of Carceri, and its orbs are 100 miles from each other. The Styx runs throughout the layer, carving channels and mixing with other native waters, ensuring that every source of water possesses the mind-erasing properties of the Styx. The abundance of rivers provides easy methods of traveling to other orbs without passing through the 100-mile space between them. This watery terrain is dominated by swamps littered with quicksand that glows green and can be anywhere from 2 feet deep to 2,000 feet deep. Mosquitoes and other insects plague the land, along with trolls that moved to the plane long ago. A bush called stinkweed is common in the swamps, producing a viscous fluid to keep insects away, acting as a stinking cloud spell, except it only disables humanoids for 1d4 rounds. Mountains dot the boggy landscape, and these are the homes of the Titans. The petitioners of Othrys are those who betrayed their followers: politicians, religious frauds, and traitors. They're all charismatic, outwardly friendly, smooth talkers that are persistent and never take no for an answer. They delight in sowing friendships just to betray them later, deriving pleasure from this act, and they practice on each other and visitors constantly. The villages of Othrys are built from the wood of mangroves and cypresses that grow in the swamps. They're usually on stilts to avoid being drowned in the swamp waters, built far from each other, and each has its own form of government. Raiding parties and wars are common, and the plane being nothing but traitors makes them very interesting and bloody. Prolonged exposure to the air on Othrys, longer than a week or two, makes visitors and inhabitants smarter, +1 to intelligence and intelligence checks, but also scheming and cunning, so that they try and ensure their plans benefit them and no one else. This effect will wear off after spending the same amount of time away from Othrys. While on this layer, there is an eerie tinkling, like slightly off-kilter bells, occasionally echoing through the layer, promising whatever the listener desires, whether that be fame, power, or fortune. Those unprepared for the lure are never seen again. The sound of bells requires a saving throw versus spell at -6. On a fail, they lose 1d20 points of wisdom permanently or until healed by a restoration spell. Only one person has been lured by the bells and returned, having fought off the influence. This person, named Vyaki, states that away from the orbs of Othrys there lies an endless gulf where giant monstrous beings are held, beings that were exiled here long before the Titans. There are many locations on Othrys. The first one we're going to talk about is called Mount Othrys. Now, this is actually 2 different mountains on 2 adjacent orbs. Each mountain is 50 miles high so that their peaks touch each other. Wedged between these peaks is the Citadel of the Titans, Mount Othrys, which is also the name of the 2 orbs, and it's also where the layer gets its name from. The Palace of the Titans is made of white marble columns, amphitheaters, and stoas of titanic size. It has its own plane of gravity so that the entrance is upward, but as one approaches, their frame of reference shifts so that they are approaching it dead on. The Titans are ruled by Kronos, also known as Cronus, the most powerful Titan and once the master of Olympus, Hades, and Tarterus before the coming of the Greek pantheon and the fall of the Titanish race. All visitors are encouraged to visit Cronus in his throne room. Otherwise, Cronus knows and decrees a horrible fate for the offender. Once one finds him in the throne room, Cronus examines their thoughts to ensure they weren't sent by the Olympians or a rival Titan. Sometimes Cronus might call upon one of his siblings, but they despise heeding their younger brother's beck and call, and can often be spied storming off from the palace, leaving a swath of destruction. The whole palace is made of white marble, but white marble can't be found on Carceri, and the Titans can't leave to get more, so it is all crumbling apart before their eyes, which angers them even more. They avert their gaze and try not to think about it, and anyone who brings their attention to the dilapidated marble will invoke their ire and result in their destruction, even if trying to repair it. There's a reason no one has volunteered to import white marble from other planes. Staring at the crumbling stone for too long brings feelings of despair. Unless the person is a member of a faction that celebrates entropy and despair, the Doomguard, the Dustmen, or the Bleak Cabal, they must make a save versus paralyzation every turn until they leave the palace. Otherwise, they are forced into introspective gloom. Members of the previously mentioned factions receive confirmation of the correctness of their beliefs and gain +2 bonus to all saves while within the area. Hostels constantly pop up to house visitors seeking audience with the Titans. They tend to get smashed to pieces when a Titan is angry with Cronus' latest scheme, but they're always rebuilt within a day or two. They never last long enough for a village to form, so there's little services or goods to buy in Mount Othrys. Mount Othrys is connected to Mount Olympus, connecting it to Hades, Olympus, and various prime material planes. According to 1st edition, this part of Mount Olympus was shattered by the Greek pantheon, disconnecting it from Mount Othrys. According to 2nd edition, it's still connected, allowing travel to Othrys, but not from it since Carceri is a prison after all. The next location is the Bastion of Last Hope. This is the headquarters of the Revolutionary League, the anarchist faction of Sigil. It has a portal to and from Sigil hidden deep inside and acts as a safe house for those trying to escape the law in Sigil. Here, anarchists can change their names and identities before going back out to start revolutions. Located far back in the mountains of Othrys, it is a bastion made out of black, igneous rock that soaks up the crimson glow of Carceri. From some angles, it resembles the shape of a squatting toad. The only entrance is through its mouth, and its eyes serve as watchposts. The inside is very little light, ensuring the secrecy of the anarchist plans and identities. Most members even walk around wearing masks. The interior of the bastion consists of long, winding pathways and tunnels that appear out of nowhere, adding to the feeling of immenseness. Technically, no one rules this place since the anarchists don't like telling others what to do, but a half-elf woman called the Steward takes it upon herself to maintain the day-to-days and keep the bastion in tip-top shape. They have no official militia or defense, but when trouble arises, they work surprisingly well together despite their chaotic alignment, ganging up in bands of 3 to 6. These typically consist of a 3rd to 5th level mage, a 3rd to 5th level warrior, and a 4th to 5th level thief. All manner of services a traveler needs can be found here, smithing, healers, outfitters, etc., but the prices are double the normal rate since the Bastion is a place for the desperate, not for those with the luxury of shopping around. There's also nefarious services for anarchists such as forging documents and surgical alterations to help assume a different identity. The third location in Othrys is the Tower of Incarnate Pain. It is a large tower currently being grown by the Yugoloths. I say grown and not built because it is, quote, formed of the living bodies of petitioners magically bound together in an obscene mishmash of flesh. Its walls bleed with pain, and the agonies of its mortar scream to the skies, end quote. Eventually, it will be a living creature on its own, able to move or bury itself in the ground. The idea behind the Tower of Incarnate Pain is that it will connect to the Tower of Arcanoloths on Gehenna and Kin Oin the Wasting Tower on Hades, allowing the Yugoloths to focus their energies across the lower planes of conflict. The hope is that this new and loyal creature will, quote, codify their race and bring wicked enlightenment of the multiverse, end quote. It is only about 1/3 finished now, but when it is done, it will be 20 miles high and 3 miles in diameter. Any non-Yugoloth that walks inside the Tower of Incarnate Pain is absorbed into it, its body becoming its bricks and its spirit becoming part of the Reflective Chasm. The Reflective Chasm is a huge gash in the ground near the tower. Its sides are lined with obsidian that reflects back light in 1,000 different ways, putting on a display of savage beauty. Anyone who looks in the Reflective Chasm for 1d6 minutes will have their deepest secrets and weaknesses, the ones they thought they had locked deep down and forgotten, come to surface. The colors in the obsidian coalesce into a sickening hue and rise as a double of the person. This double will, quote, try to overwhelm him with its knowledge of his secret weakness. A paladin, for example, feels gut-wrenching remorse for any unworthy acts he may have committed in the past. A fiend, on the other hand, suffers from the weakness of a mercy allowed or a virtue left unsoiled, end quote. If he succeeds a wisdom check at -4, he walks away to safety. Otherwise, he cannot resist the pull and hurls himself in. Othrys is also the home to Surma, the Finnish god of death, and Kipatito, I don't know how to pronounce that. I looked up pronunciation guides. I couldn't find anything on this, but it's a Finnish deity if anyone knows how to pronounce Finnish names. But in Dungeons & Dragons, she's more well known for being a Forgotten Realms goddess of disease. Not to be confused with Talana, the other more powerful Forgotten Realms goddess of disease, who I believe killed her. Anyways, both of their realms are described as gloomy, cold, marshy places that are always dark despite the red glow of the plane. Surma's realm is filled with open graves and undead, while Kipatito's realm is called Feculence, and its winds carry all manner of diseases. Neither receive many visitors. The last location of Othrys is the Palace of Thunder, the divine realm of Raiden, the Japanese god of thunder and Fletchers. It is insulated from the rest of the plane by a thick covering of dark storm clouds, and it is described as a place of exploding light and thunder. Cathrys, the second layer. The orbs here are smaller than those of Othrys, so that the gaps between each is 500 miles across. The worlds of Cathrys consist of sanguine jungles and scarlet grasslands. The jungle trees ooze acid instead of sap, eating through everything and filling the layer with the stench of decay. The natives never bathe, developing a slimy residue on their skin which protects them from this acid, although they have a superstitious fear of the jungles, so they rarely visit anyway. The jungle acid eats through metal in 1d10 rounds, leather in 1d4 rounds, and causes 1d6 points of damage per round to exposed flesh. In case you don't know, in AD&D, a round was 1 minute. Traveling the jungle without brushing up against the acid-coated plants is impossible, given the thickness of it, so none journey to the heart of the Scarlet Jungle. In 3rd edition, the air itself is acidic, dealing 1d4 damage per minute even if you somehow avoid touching the plants. The plains are hospitable. They are windswept grasslands with grass blades that are sharp and jagged like swords. Anyone who passes through the grass without minimal armor will take 1d4 points of damage per round in 2nd edition. In 3rd edition, they take 1d4 damage each round, but only if they run and fail a DC 20 reflex save. Roving hill giants and petitioners maintain roads in the Crimson Grasslands so that they don't get sliced by the blades, but the grass is always encroaching on them, requiring constant maintenance. The layer is mainly inhabited by petitioners and Garreleths. The petitioners are hill giants devoted to Grolantor, the god of hill giants, or despicable humans who ended up here. These petitioners are broken up into tribes which raid each other for food and meat, eating the flesh of other petitioners and drinking the blood of the same. They live in temporary huts made from razor grass that stink of filth and decay, then move on once they've polluted a particular territory. The first location in Cathrys we'll talk about is Steading. This is the most well-known realm in Cathrys. It is the divine realm of Grolantor, the god of the hill giants. In 1st edition, this was located on the 4th layer Colothys, but in 2nd edition, it is on Cathrys. The philosophy of Steading can be described as this, quote, "The only true strength is the strength in your arm, and you should use it as often as you want to. Show those below you that you're in charge by beating them senseless, and never let them see your fear," end quote. Grolantor is one of the most dangerous powers of Carceri with powerful abilities, but he is determined to commit to stupid plans that tend to fail. They say that he could be intelligent if he only let himself think about things. He has another realm in the Abyss he visits, but he prefers the grim moods of Carceri. Steading is located in the savannas of Cathrys. You'll know where his realm begins as the crimson grass ends and gives way to earthy brown hills. Among the many hills is a large one in the center, the Steading of Grolantor. It is literally one giant steading. In case you were like me and didn't know what a steading is, it's just buildings on a farm, such as barns and stables. The Steading of Grolantor spans miles of territory with its rambling wooden halls. The whole thing is only 1 story tall, but it's 1 story for a giant, so it's still pretty big. The realm is filled with hill giant petitioners that roam the lands hunting mammoths and lions to bring food back for Grolantor's insatiable appetite. If they encounter intruders, there's no telling what will happen. They might kill them, leave them alone, or bring them back to the Steading. If brought to the Steading, they may feed them to Grolantor, grant them treasures in order to win non-giants over to Grolantor's cause, or simply kill them. If they're a dwarf, then they can forget about making it out alive. The giants of the steading want nothing more than to exterminate all dwarves. They also wear severed human or demi-human feet as lucky charms. It's not that they despise humans the same way they hate dwarves, but they see them the same way humans see rabbits. Nuisances that can sometimes be good for trade supplies, amusing pets, and most of the time, food. There are about 100 hilltop forts dotting the realm. The steadings with fortified stockades have Grolantor's favor, while the ones that appear weather-beaten and ready to collapse do not have his favor. They tend to raid each other, attempting to obtain Grolantor's favor when they have no one else to raid. Man-sized holes litter the realm, some dug by creatures and others naturally occurring. If someone hops in one of these holes to hide from giants, other than the obvious hazard that a creature could be in there, it turns the person's mind to that of prey. Paranoid and jumpy, running away from any noise and losing any fighting edge they might have had. Mechanically, this means if they were planning to attack in a round, they go last in initiative, and if they are trying to flee, they go first in initiative. This effect lasts 1d4 weeks after leaving the steading. Few services and goods are sold here that are useful for non-giants. Prices and quality varies between hill forts, and most offer Voth skins and other equipment made from Voth parts. Phedaphon. Phedaphon is a town of constant drudgery and savagery lying on the sanguine plains of Cathrys. The buildings are made from ropes and wood collected from the steaming jungle nearby. The foundations are built into a deep, bubbling tar pit that the town hangs over. When intruders invade, the locals cut the rope bridges connected to the building the hostile is in, and since the building is no longer supported by the rest of the town, it sinks into the muck. They say Ferostus live in the tar below, and for the small price of a few villagers every now and then, they protect Phedaphon. The people here are the most civilized of the whole layer, which isn't saying much since the petitioners of Cathrys are those who gave in to animal instincts. Phedaphon is one of few sources of lamp oil on the whole plain, and they've refined the oil and tar enough to make scented oils and other valuables. The Palace of Poisoned Tears, the divine realm of Talana, the Forgotten Realm's goddess of disease. It is a pyramid-shaped palace surrounded by a humid fin filled with parasites, insects, and all manner of infectious agents. The last location in Cathrys is the Apothecary of Sin. It is a one-story building made from woven-together scrap wood sitting atop a large tree, accessed via rope-suspended catwalks. It is a shop that deals in poisons and acids of all kinds, and is run by a Glabrizu demon named Sinmaker. Minethys. Minethys is a realm of cold deserts and cutting winds. Its orbs are smaller than Cathrys so that each orb is 5,000 miles apart from one another, and these gulfs of air between them are filled with harsh winds. The winds never stop here, and have stripped the land of plant life, destroyed the soil, and ground the earth into sand. Visitors are berated by stinging particles of grit that the wind kicks up, flaying flesh from bone and dealing 1d6 damage per round on anyone not protected by heavy clothing. Although in 3rd edition, this only occurs during a sandstorm, which has a 10% chance of occurring every 24 hours. The skies are filled with yellowish dust that mixes with the red glow of the plain, creating a hellish orange glow that permeates the layer and applies the effects of a stinking cloud spell on anyone who doesn't cover their nose and mouth with a wet cloth. While the poisonous clouds and stinging winds are two separate weather phenomenons in later editions, in 1st edition they were one and the same, with the wind carrying stinging fetid clouds from the airy gulfs between the orbs to the orbs themselves. Every 10 days on Minethys, a tornado sweeps through, carrying everything in its path to an adjacent orb, and wreaking havoc along the way. In 2nd edition, it says the petitioners live in sand-built huts to shelter from the sandstorms, while in 3rd edition, it says they live in dug-out pits in the ground to protect themselves from the tornadoes. The petitioners of Minethys are greedy, miserable sods that won't share anything with anyone without payment. Money has little use here, so they usually take services or rags for protection from the elements as payments. The petitioners here are a tough lot, and, quote, they'll bob a body for all he's worth if he lets them, end quote. Other than the greedy petitioners, there are the Gautier, roaming the wasteland bundled in rags, and the Fomorian petitioners who leave their realm to take vengeance in the name of their god. There are two known locations on Minethys. The first are the sand tombs of Peirathion. Peirathion was a city built on Minethys eons ago. It has long been buried in the sands, but its ruins still lie far beneath the shifting surface of the layer. Occasionally, the sands reveal parts of it, but it is always covered back up within hours, taking any creatures with it. Rumors say that the ruins are haunted by sand gorgons that swim through the sand as if it were water, and petrified undead that have been weathered and eroded by the sands. The Rack of Injustice. Somewhere on a frozen, windswept plain of Minethys lies the realm of Caerontor, the banished giant god and the patron deity of Fomorians. Rack of Injustice is a mausoleum of beast and giantish bones, where his pack of ever-hungry winter wolves rage across the desolate plains wherever he sends them. In addition to the locations just mentioned, there's a few more locations that are listed as being on Minethys, but have no descriptions of what they're actually like. These are the Mausoleum of Pain, the realm of the dragon god of death, Null, in his aspect of Falazur, Trickster's Delight, the realm of Parafair, the demigod patron of Nagas, and the Palace of Sius, the realm of the titan Sius. The fourth layer of Carceri is Colothys. It is a layer of steep mountains reaching hundreds of miles high. The orbs are hardly spherical, the jagged peaks giving them an irregular shape, and they are each 500,000 miles apart from each other, twice the distance between the Earth and the Moon. Traversing the sheer slopes is a dangerous, nearly impossible task, as the land is divided by canyons miles deep. There are rope bridges crossing the gorges, but the strong winds make this treacherous. There are also occasional plateaus that offer respite, and some individuals have carved 1-foot wide paths one can follow, although they might just lead to a Garoleth's lair, given the traitorous nature of the plane. In 3rd edition, whenever characters travel outside these official trade routes, they must make a DC 15 climb check to move 1/2 their speed as a miscellaneous full round action. The petitioners here are liars and cheaters, clinging to the sides of canyons and tiny precarious villages. The villagers constantly fight over flat ground, food, water, and supplies, and sometimes they fight just because they feel like killing. They would live at the bottom of the canyons to avoid the treacherous slopes, but avalanches, Garoleths, and Tanari traveling to Hades makes this an issue. Only outcasts live at the bottom of these canyons, exiles in the land of exiles. They trust no one and are trusted by no one. Besides the petitioners, an outpost of Grolangtor's giants, Shator Garoleths, and the Titan Cryas also live here. There are several named locations on Colothys. The first is the Land of the Hunt, the realm of Malar, the Faerunian god of the hunt and predators. Quote, "The hunt is everything. Assad is either predator or prey in the hunt of life, and anyone who doesn't hunt is in his turn hunted." End quote. Malar can be found wandering the realm looking for new prey to hunt. He usually takes the form of a great cat, and his fur is always matted with blood. The realm is less rugged and greener than the rest of Colothys. It has actual paths that wind through the mountains, and the bottoms of the canyons are habitable. The realm is filled with game to hunt. If you're hungry, all you have to do is hunt. But the prey is always as strong, if not stronger, than the hunter. Quote, "The hunter has to show cunning and foresight to take down his prey, and he's got to wear it down before he closes in. The more brutal the kill, the better the quality of meat on it." End quote. The towns of the land are not really towns, but caves where packs of Malarites live and breed. Hundreds of dens crowd the mountainsides, in packs running from 4 to 4,000. They have a hierarchy where one member dominates the group, and any member of the pack can challenge the leader in a duel to the death at any time. Some dens allow visitors in trade, and these export animal furs and import metals and other things they don't make themselves. Other dens do not allow visitors, so don't go walking around the land looking for people to trade with. While in the land of the hunt, anyone with predatory instincts or who are connected to nature, such as rangers and druids, can detect scents and sounds far more easily. Mechanically, this gives a +4 bonus to surprise rolls, since it's almost impossible to sneak up on them in Malar's realm. The most notable services offered here are guides to show people the safest ways through Colothys to the next layer, although watch out for being led into a trap, for the hunters love fresh meat, and mercenaries, as the Malorites make excellent scouts and warriors tracking people for days. The next location in Colothys is the Vault. Atop one of Colothys' peaks is the Vault, a prison constructed by the 3 law-giving factions of Sigil to house excess prisoners. It is a huge metal orb with jagged blades sticking out, covered in razor vine, and surrounded by razor shrubs for 1 mile all around. It has only 3 windows, and the only viable entrance is a 2-way portal from the prison in Sigil. No one has ever escaped. The prisoners here are ones that are too bothersome to be held in Sigil, and no one sent here ever leaves. The guards are all Harmonium or Mercy killers and have absolute power over life and death of the prisoners. Next up, we have Gallows Home. Gallows Home is a portal on Colothys that provides escape from Carceri. As far as I can tell, it is the only way of leaving the plane from any layer that's not Othrys. To reach it, one must wind through the gorges, into the canyons miles below, through a small cave mouth which, after a short passage, opens up into a massive chamber where the portal lies. However, the portal is on the other side of a 5-mile gap that is half a mile deep. The bottom of this gargantuan pit is littered with shattered bones that will impale anyone who falls in. Hanging above the pit by frayed hempen ropes are the bodies of giants, 200 yards head to toe, with their throats slit open by a neat blade. Flesh still clings to the bodies despite their assumed age, filling the air with the putrid scent of rot. The bodies are covered in writhing maggots, but also villages petitioners have built on them, connecting the bodies and buildings with bridges. They eat the meat of the dead giants and attack almost all intruders. There's not much law here. If a crime bad enough to gain the attention of the town is committed, the villagers pick someone who likely did it and throw him over the edge. It's not real justice, but it's good enough for them. Many of them enjoy watching poor Burks tumble down into the pit, so they make up stories about imagined crimes just to make their day more entertaining. No one knows what the giants are, but they're assumed to be members of some long-dead race that predates all recorded history. Some believe that by treating the giants as objects, that is, by getting use from their corpses, it keeps them dead and prevents them from roaming the plains. Once the portal is reached, it can be activated by having a bone in your hand, and it takes you to Sigil. As far as I can tell, nothing stops a simple fly spell or some other way of magical flight and just skipping all of these horrible villages and flying straight to the portal. Next up, we have the realm of Grolantor. As said earlier, Grolantor, the god of hill giant, had his realm in Colothys in 1st edition as opposed to 2nd edition where it was on Cathrys. I already talked about the 2nd edition version of his realm, the Steading on Cathrys, but in the 1st edition, it's in Colothys, and it was located in the rocky peaks of the mountains. The orbs in the layers above his realm were kept by Shator Dimodans that ceded to him their vassalage out of fear of Grolantor's armies. Next on Colothys, we have the Garden of Malice. This is an entire orb whose cliff faces and slopes are covered in thick vines and tubers that sprout a plethora of beautiful flowers. The vines are animate and will wring the life from anyone who touches or gets too close to them. Every 600 days, they release tiny seeds into the air, which get carried by the winds to hundreds of other orbs on Colothys. Alaniath, the divine realm of Faerun, the male drow deity of thievery. No one knows what this realm is like, or even where it is located, other than somewhere on Colothys, as Faerun wipes the memories of all who stumble upon it. Last on Colothys is the Temple of Cryas, the realm of the Titan Cryas, but I couldn't find any information on this location other than the name. Porphatys, the 5th layer of Carceri. It is the wettest and 2nd coldest layer of Tarterus. The orbs here are millions of miles apart. The planets themselves consist of shallow oceans and black snow. The airy gulfs between the worlds move great black clouds of demonic snow, which is acidic in nature, from orb to orb. Exposed skin caught in a snowstorm takes 1d4 points of damage per minute in 1st edition, or 1d6 per 10 minutes in 2nd edition. It also rots cloth in 10 minutes, but has no effect on stone or metal. The snow will remain frozen on peaks, but it melts elsewhere, inundating most of the plain in acidic water, 1d6 feet deep in 1st edition, but deep and as vast as oceans in 2nd and 3rd edition. These oceans are just as acidic and have the same properties as the snow. Porphatys is bitterly freezing, and the only land consists of tiny sandbars. Occasionally, these sandbars have small peaks riddled with caves. The denizens of Porphatys fight over the sandbars and caves, pushing each other into the acidic ocean and feeding on the bodies of others. While the acid snow and ocean deal no damage to the petitioners, it still causes them pain. There are only 2 known locations on Porphatys that I could find. First up is Oceanus' temple. The Titan Oceanus maintains a half-sunken temple here, but he hates visitors and crushes them with giant waves. Only those invited can come, and all they will get is long rants about how much he hates Poseidon. The other location is the Ship of 100. It is sometimes called the White Caravel, and it is a ghost-white, unmanned caravel that sails the cold seas of Porphatys. It somehow travels between the orbs, disappearing on one and appearing on another, picking up stranded souls and other travelers brave enough to get on. The lower deck is filled with exactly 100 stone sarcophagi, and anytime someone opens one, everyone on board is devoured by some calamity. When this isn't happening, it is inhabited by travelers, mostly petitioners, who use it for transportation or as a temporary home. And as you can imagine, they don't take kindly to people investigating or trying to open the stone sarcophagi. The 6th and last layer of Carceri is Agathys. It is the deepest and the coldest layer. The orbs are so far apart here, they cannot be seen at all from one another, each orb appearing to float alone in a pitch-black void. 3rd edition even says that there is only one orb on the whole layer. The lack of nearby orbs means the only light comes from itself, making it extremely dim when compared to the other layers. The orbs of Agathys are covered in dark ice streaked with red. The atmosphere is similar to mountain peaks on the prime material plane, deathly cold and hard to breathe. This freezing air is painful, dealing 1d2 points of damage per round in 2nd edition. Also in 2nd edition, the difficult to breathe air causes anyone exerting themselves for longer than 1 round to make a constitution check with a cumulative -2 penalty for each round the exertion continues. However, it doesn't say what happens if you fail this constitution check. In 3rd edition, this layer has the minor negative dominant trait. The ice drips from the water of Porphatys above, and it's just as acidic. The only portals to Agathys are found in the deepest oceans of Porphatys, meaning only those who can survive its acidic waters can get here. The ice is always growing, so staying in one place for too long will result in one being enveloped by the creeping ice. Sights of half-stuck bodies and the sounds of still-living victims screaming as they are crushed between ice flows echo throughout Agathys. Quote, "They'll promise the world to anyone that can help, but sure as ice, they'll betray that promise for something better." End quote. The petitioners here are false friends and betrayers, the layers cold reflecting their heart. They say somewhere hidden on Agathys is where Apams, the father of the Garoleths, dwells, and it holds all the secrets of their race. According to the Greyhawk wiki, Apams' domain is the 3-sided palace. However, that wiki does not cite the source of that sentence, so I don't know for sure if that's true. However, I do know that there is a location called the 3-sided palace shown on the poster map of Carceri from the Planes of Conflict box set, but I can't find any information on what it's like. Other than the 3-sided palace, the only other named location on Agathys is called the Crypt in 2nd edition and Necromantion in 3rd edition. And this is the divine realm of Nerol, the Flan god of death in the Greyhawk setting. In 2nd edition, it is located on the first layer Othrys, and in 3rd edition, it is on the last layer Agathys. However, since 99% of the information about the realm is from 3rd edition, as 2nd edition didn't go into any detail other than the fact that it exists, I have placed it in Agathys for the organization of this video. The Crypt, or the Necromantion, is a citadel carved from black ice where petitioners are frozen into the floors, walls, and ceilings. Inside the citadel is a large chamber called the Hidden Temple, filled with undead of all kinds, the green glow of ghoul light lanterns, and the constant chanting of demonic priests performing necromantic rituals. Here, experiments are performed on necrotic flesh piled on altars. At the center of the Hidden Temple is Nerol's throne, where the red skeleton robed in black sits and wields his scythe-like blade of red force called Life Cutter. There are many satellite chambers holding food for the demonic priest, people for experimenting, and various treasures and relics. Small tunnels supposedly connect to deeper layers within the ice of Agathys, where things so horrible are kept, even the demons don't go down there. And that is all the information I could find on Carceri. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and remember to subscribe for more D&D related content.